Hello and welcome everyone to VMware Basic Networking tutorial, and you're watching the first video in the third module, and that is about Introduction to VMware. So this video series is absolutely intended for those who have a very few information about VMware virtualization. So this is to prepare you to be familiar with VMware virtualization components to move on to vSphere networking. So what we're going to cover in this introduction to VMware video series is what is virtualization and what is a VMware. Then about VMware vSphere, because VMware have many other products. They have storage virtualization, they have networking virtualization, then cloud orchestrations, many things other. So our topic is VMware vSphere. So we're gonna see what is VMware vSphere, and we will just get familiarized with the VMware vSphere components. And then we have three labs: how to install hypervisor on a server, how to install a virtual machine on top of hypervisor, then how to install vCenter that gonna give you a complete control of entire virtualized environment from a single pane of glass. What is virtualization? What virtualization means? Virtual version of something. In computing, it refers to a virtual version of computer hardware, storage, network resources like that. Let's go through an example how data centers were handling application before virtualization. They bring physical server, install operating system, and run some application on top of it. And the operating system provides memory, CPU, and network resources to the application. And this is how things were working without virtualization. If you have multiple applications like a domain controller, file server, backup, every organization have minimum these applications. You need to maintain those applications in a separate server for the compliance of the application. And this increases the number of hardware, power, cooling, space requirements. So when you decide to virtualize this environment, what you do, you bring hardware which is compatible for virtualization. Then you install a hypervisor on top of it, which is a software installed on this physical server. And on top of it, you run virtual machines. So the server you install hypervisor is commonly called as host machines in a virtual environment. There are many hypervisors like VMware, Microsoft, KVM, etc. So once you have this hypervisor ready in your environment, then you can install virtual machines which runs as a virtual instance of a computer system in a layer abstracted from the actual hardware. So that helps you to run multiple operating systems simultaneously on a single server with the help of hypervisor. And to the applications running on top of this virtualized machine, it can appear as if they are on their own dedicated machines. So what is VMware? VMware specializes in providing a platform for the virtualization of IT infrastructure. And the most common product is VMware Hypervisor, that is called as vSphere today, and which enables the virtualization of servers, and that is what we are going to see in the coming videos. The VMware was acquired by EMC as a storage company in 2004, and EMC was acquired by Dell in 2016, and many more products have been added to VMware. VMware is not just limited to VMware Hypervisor vSphere. There is cloud management, virtualized storage, networking, as well as desktop softwares. So VMware now has a major presence in many private data centers. Come to our topic, VMware vSphere. So VMware vSphere is not just a single product, it's a suite, includes many products, most notably the ESXi hypervisor and vCenter suite of applications. So ESXi is an operating system. We call it as a hypervisor installed on a compatible server. Users or the administrators can connect directly to an ESXi host using host IP address. And they get a vSphere web client which helps them to deploy virtual machines on top of an ESXi host. vCenter is a licensed product that allows you to configure, deploy, and manage the entire virtual machine lifecycle from a centralized location. So vSphere Web Client is to manage one-to-one, and vCenter is to manage multiple EXSI hosts. So if you have many EXSI hosts in your organization, then you need a vCenter to manage these multiple EXSI hosts. vCenter itself a virtual machine you deployed during the installation of vSphere, and with vCenter you can do more than what you do with the vSphere Web Client. vCenter helps you to configure live migration, fault tolerance, and a centralized management of your entire VMware infrastructure. So VMware vSphere includes three components. EXSI is a hypervisor. You access it using vSphere Web Client, and vCenter to manage multiple EXSI hosts. So let's move to the demonstration part. I have four basic demo for you. That is how to download EXSI and vCenter, then how to install a EXSI hypervisor, then how to install a virtual machine on top of a EXSI hypervisor, then how to install vCenter. So this is the basic setup that you minimum need to start with VMware to learn any VMware technology. For the demonstration, I have one Windows domain controller because I need DNS to set up VMware vCenter, then one EXSI server and a vCenter 6.7 version. So you have two options to prepare your own lab. Option one is VMware workstation that you can install on a Windows PC or a Linux PC. Then you can run Active Directory, EXSI and vCenter from that. The minimum memory configuration that you need is 24 GB RAM. You can do it in a desktop also. The second option is if you have any free desktop or a server, then install EXSI server on it. Then you can have a nexted EXSI and virtual machine for Active Directory and a vCenter on top of it. So you can choose one of these options. If you don't have an infrastructure in your lab, or you don't have an option to practice this, no need to worry about that. You just watch this video, and at the end I will introduce you to VMware free hands-on labs available to practice the same. The first part, we're gonna see how to download EXSI and vCenter. So if you are new to VMware, just create a myvmware.com account. Then you can download a trial version of EXSI and vCenter that is valid for 60 days from the day of installation. Log into myvmware.com account. If you are new, just register and log in. Then when you scroll down, you will see VMware vSphere, vSAN, NSS, Horizon. From there, click on download free trial for VMware vSphere. Just fill up the form and click start free trial. That will navigate you to vSphere EXSI and vCenter downloads option. So click manually download to download the files. Now we have finished with VMware downloads. Let's see how to install EXSI. For that you need a minimum hardware of 4 GB RAM and 40 GB hard disk and a virtualization enabled CPU. If you plan to run it on an old hardware, make sure you have an Intel virtualization option. And for the new machines and desktops, it's just a matter of enabling it from the BIOS. So here I'm going to show to you how to install vSphere EXSI in a VMware workstation. If you plan to install EXSI on a physical hardware, you can boot it from a USB using the same ISO, and the process of installation are same whether it is a VMware workstation or a nexted EXSI or on a physical hardware. So you can just follow the same method that I'm going to show to you. This is my lab environment. I have an Active Directory server running already, and I'm going to install an EXSI machine. So for that, go and select new virtual machine, then click next. Here you have to point out the ISO. So this is the one we recently downloaded. I just selected it, automatically detected that is a VMware EXSI 6, and you can give a name here, for example host 1, something like that. Then select the maximum disk size. Then this is the hardware setup. By default it came, And when you go to the processor, you can see Intel VT is default enabled. If you are going to run it on a physical hardware, then make sure you have Intel VT enabled from the BIOS. Then you click finish. So everything is ready. Just kick off the installation. It's loading the ESXi installer. It takes some time to reach to the VMware data store partition. Accept the license agreement and continue. Now it's scanning for the available storage devices, and it found 40 GB hard disk, and that is going to be used as a VMware partition. You choose keyboard layout and enter a root password, and this is going to be your root credential for VMware ESXi. Just enter and click F11 and press F11 to complete the installation. Now the installation is in progress. Now press F2 to log in with the root credentials that we just created during the installation. You don't have much control of ESXi from this interface, and this is what you see when you connect your VGA cable and screen to your ESXi server. The first thing that we're going to do is to configure the management network. So you need an IP address. By default it took DHCP IP address. I'm going to make it static, and I'm going to keep this same IP address. So you can configure your own IP address, and the next step is to configure DNS. So enter your domain controller or DNS server IP address, then give a host name. This is my first, so I put host 1. And you can put the suffix here mine is itproguide.online, then click OK. Now you're done with the management network. It's time to save. Then to press escape to save, then click yes. Now let us test the management network configuration. For that, select text management network. Then you can see the ping address, gateway, DNS, and also you can resolve host name from your ESXi. It tried to ping to the gateway and that succeeded. It tried to ping to the DNS, that succeeded, but it didn't resolve my host name because I don't have a host entry. I don't have a DNS entry for that. That's why that way will make it no problem. So that's all. Once you complete the installation, open browser and enter IP address of your ESXi server. That will navigate you to vSphere web client, that is for one-to-one management. Enter your root credentials of ESXi server. And now what you see is the vSphere web client. You get a quick hardware review in the first dashboard, and you can see there are 3 options: virtual machines, storage, and networking. When you look at the storage, you see there is a data store, and there is a VMware data store created by default when you install ESXi server. Let us upload one ISO image to this data store so that we can virtual machine from that ISO. I'm gonna upload Windows Server 2019 here. So now we have an ISO file ready in the data store, so we can go for the installation of virtual machine using that ISO. Let's have a look at the networking tab also. So go and click on the networking. You see port groups, virtual switches, physical and IC. We will cover this topic very deeply in the coming videos, so leave it for now. We'll do this in the best way we can. So go back to the virtual machine. Let us create a virtual machine. For that, create or register virtual machine, then select create a new virtual machine, click next, enter a name to identify your virtual machine that will be displayed under the virtual machine tab, and choose the guest OS. Here it is a Windows, and the version it is 2016 or later because 2019 is not yet into the list. Then click next. Then choose a data store. Here I have only one data store, so just select the default one. Then here you can configure the hardware. Here you can configure memory, CPU, hard disk, and network. So just choose based upon your requirement here, because I have very few capacity only on the ESXi. And you can see I select the ISO that we just downloaded, so that is mounted as a CD drive, like you put a CD drive in a server. So now everything is ready. I just need to kick off the installation. You can see the virtual machine was successfully created. Now just press play button, that will power up the virtual machine, and you can see it has booted and the installation is progressing. So like how you normally install Windows Server, that's all. Final part of this demo, how to install vCenter appliance. The first thing to do when you install vCenter appliance is to create a DNS record for vCenter and make sure you have a proper reverse lookup also. We will see how to do that. After that, you log into any Windows server on the same network, then mount ISO that we just downloaded earlier. Then there is two stages. One is deploy vCenter, then set up the appliance. It's a very straightforward task. You will see how to do that. So here I log into my domain controller. This is my DNS server. So I'm going to create a host record for vCenter. So before that, I told you the reverse lookup is very important. So let us create a zone for reverse lookup. So if you are new to VMware vCenter and you don't have a reverse lookup in your environment, you can just follow this same procedure. Enter your network ID here. Mine is 192.168.1 network. So we finished with the reverse lookup zone configuration. Next, we're gonna create a host record for vCenter. So vCenter 1, for example, then IP address. So now a host record is ready. Now let's move to deploy vCenter. For that, you mount the ISO to your Windows server, then navigate to the folder and you click on installer. From the four options, choose to install. And you can see there are two stages: deploy appliance and setup appliance. We're gonna run the first stage, that is deploy appliance. You need to enter few informations in the coming wizard. Accept the license agreement here. Then click next. Go for the embedded platform service controller. That means all the components in one appliance. Here you have to give the target ESXi host. I told you that we're going to install vCenter on an ESXi host. So enter the ESXi host IP address here. I'm going to install this on an ESXi host 6.5 version and the IP address is 192.168.1.214, and enter the root credentials for that ESXi host. Accept the certificate warning and continue. And this is the root credentials that you're gonna set it for vCenter appliance. So set up a password for that. Then click next. This is for a demonstration purpose, so I'm gonna choose tiny deployment size. Then enter the network informations for vCenter. This is the host record that we just created. Then enter the IP address here. Then subnet mask. Then default gateway of your network. Then domain controller or DNS server address. Once you filled up with the necessary informations, then click next, review the configurations and click finish to start the installation. So once you complete the stage 1, deploy vCenter server appliance, you're going to take to the second stage, that is set up or configure a new vCenter server. So enter the root credentials that you just entered in the previous stage and log into vCenter server appliance deployment. Now you can see it's a appliance setup stage. Click next and just verify the appliance configurations and make sure you have a proper NTP synchronization method, and you can enable SSH also. That will help you to troubleshoot if you have any error using SSH. Click next. Now it's time to enter the sign in domain name. By default, it is vSphere.local. I prefer to keep vSphere.local. That is most recommended unless you have a reason to change it to a custom domain name. Then enter the password. Then click next. Now review the configuration settings. Then click finish. Now the configuration is progressing. Appliance setup has completed, so you can go and start using vCenter from the link provided by the installation wizard here, that is vcenter1.itproguide.online at port 443, and you can see there is two options. One is HTML5 and other one is a Flash. Flash is already depreciated, but still it is accessible. You can configure, you can work on it, but it is highly recommended to go with HTML5 because from vCenter 7 onwards, I believe there will be HTML5 only. Now enter the administrator credentials. If you use custom domain during the configuration instead of vSphere.local, then choose administrator at your customer domain. Otherwise, enter the password and click on login. So once you are in, the first step is to create a data center. So this is to organize your host and virtual machine. So right click on the vcenter.itproguide.online, then create a data center. So you can give main or production or demo, whatever preferable to your organization. Under this, you can create folders for organizing host, storage, network components. So I'm going to give a new folder here. I'm going to create a new folder named demo. And we have a ESXi host that we just installed in the previous demo. So let us add that ESXi host to this vCenter so that we can manage our ESXi host here. And this is the ESXi that we prepared in the previous demo, and the IP address is 192.168.1.145. So let's add that first. Click next. Enter the root credentials. At this point, you can enter the license and keep this disabled. Then I choose main DC, the data center, as my virtual machine location. So that is all. Now the host has been added to vCenter. Now you can manage this host from vCenter. So if you have multiple ESXi hosts, you can manage it from here. So we have done with this module. Let's summarize what we have learned. We go through what is virtualization and what is VMware and what are the components that comes in VMware vSphere. And we saw how to set up ESXi, how to install a virtual machine in ESXi, and how to set up vCenter, and how to add ESXi host to vCenter so that you can manage all the ESXi at one vCenter. So that is all about module 3. Thank you for watching, and let's continue in the next module.